Welcome to Gray Overload. I'm Anthony, and I want to talk a little bit about the Activision Microsoft deal. Now, when Microsoft went through and said they were announcing to buy this, I had a video out on there, but they said it could take, a full 18 months, a long time for this deal to go through. And as we see with certain regulatory bodies in the EU and United States, it seems like, and UK, it seems like they are hitting a little bit of roadblocks here and there. I think they kind of expected this. But one company that really seems to be putting up a fight right now is Sony. Sony has Call of Duty exclusives for a time period before it comes to everything else, and that's something that Sony doesn't want to give up, reasonably, right? It probably helps sell consoles, and it's a franchise. It's a good making franchise. Not that Microsoft has had any good making franchises here recently that that people want to go buy things for, and it turns a great revenue stream for Activision. And as I'm basically, do not want this continuous consolidation throughout this whole industry, the tech industry. I think that we are getting too consolidated. I like to have a little bit more competition, but I also don't see a huge roadblock here for Microsoft. I know there's been rumors with the FTC wanting to sue. There's been, the UK wanting some concessions, the EU. Microsoft's been out there saying, we'll give you a 10-year deal, Sony, for Call of Duty. And Phil Spencer said, we can't go forever with Call of Duty. I get that, right? Who knows? Call of Duty may go in a completely different direction, right? It may no longer be there. And we even have here in the United States, I believe Google is kind of also pushing against it with the failed Stadia and everything else, which is kind of interesting, right? Google's pushing against it. I think the reason why Google's doing it is hopefully to try to get a concession where they may not have to be looked at too hardly for what they're doing with their store activities and Android and browsers and everything else. Ads, all that multitude of stuff, right? So I think it's a multitude of games. I've even seen some things where the UK or EU was looking at, Microsoft, would you be willing to put another store out there to compete on these mobile platforms so that can kind of break up these monopolies of these, Apple and Google stores? Another very interesting aspect to this, how we're getting these regulatory bodies involved in this whole buying operation, this consolidation, instead of always looking for, is this deal good or not. It's kind of starting to get into Google, Sony, hey, I want to have my piece too here, let's make a deal here, and you just regulate it. And then they have some other motos where they want to have a more diverse ecosystem for stores on these mobile platforms, and that's going to be negotiated. Overall, I still think we're probably 6 months away from really knowing where this is going to go. Um, like I said, I like to have more competition, but I'd be more enthused if Microsoft was maybe had good faith of, with all their other games that studios that they've bought, they've came out with some blockbuster games. I was talking to my friend last night, and or a couple nights ago. We've chatted since then, and about games, and he's a big Far Cry player, but there's a Far Cry DLC coming out, which he's super excited about. And you start going through it, and he before that, before this DLC was coming out, he's like, I don't know what games I even want to buy. There's nothing that interests me in 2023. And that is not a good prospect when you have Microsoft that has bought all these studios, and they're not putting out games that everyone wants to, jump on and buy. You just don't want that to happen as well with Activision, right? It's a $70 billion purchase. Ah, man, it is amazing, and we're going into recessionary times. That $70 billion is looking kind of probably a little bit different than Microsoft. However, Activision was vulnerable at that time, right? Activision had those scandals going on with the CEO and everything else, and that hasn't gone away. And one thing I'm really starting to figure out here, or starting to look at, is why regulators were interested in Activision at that time, right? They were really looking at it and saying, hey, we got to do something about this. And now they don't seem to also be looking at that with that sort of realm of, hey, Microsoft are going to be cleaning this up at all. Very interesting how that dynamic worked out. But I see Sony's side, right? They don't want it, but Sony did buy Bungie. They bought some other studios, and we'll see what they do with them. If they restrict their games off of, I could just see this getting into a little bit hairy. The next studio Sony buys, right? And Microsoft goes, well, you got to bring those to Xbox too. You got to bring them to Game Pass. You have to do this, and they throw a huge fit, and you're not doing yourself any favors anymore. So if you're going to keep buying studios, maybe there's another independent studios. Maybe some of these indie games come up and become bigger studios and bigger games that we all want to go and play and enjoy, which I'm hoping for, because as consolidation happens, I'd feel better if Microsoft released some blockbuster games. Halo Infinite, well, I'm going through the Halo series. I've never played through it all, but I'm going through that now. I just finished up my, Half-Life. Every couple of years I play Half-Life again, so I played it again. Half-Life 2 and all the episodes. But now, you're going through, and Infinite wasn't really a blockbuster game, so where is Microsoft going? How many more games? They have Bethesda. Where are all their games coming out? Is Microsoft really kind of working on something? Maybe in 2024 there's going to be a whole bunch of them, but that's a long time here with, people that, because you got a wide sphere of everyone wants a game, right? You have people who want to play online, you have people that don't want to play online, like me. I'd rather not play online. Um, I like single player a lot more. And then you have, big wide open maps with first person shooters that people like. So you got this whole diverse group, and you're trying to make games for, each individual group, right? You get some crossover, but some people like to stick to the games that they like, and you have to keep people interested. And if you're not releasing the games, you're going to lose that market eventually. And then when they say, nothing really interests me, that's not great for your product, for somebody that's just buying up all these studios. So there's some of my thoughts on this Activision thing. I think we're going to get more out of it, right? We have, oh man, these regulatory bodies are really starting to make it interesting, especially with Sony squawking like mad. And, if it's the other way around, Microsoft would be squawking like mad too. So this is, VPs of Activision executives came out and said we won't hesitate to fight and defend for the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. So there's that. There's these three regulatory bodies are interesting. Now, if you get approval from like the EU, UK, and the United States, is that enough where Microsoft just kind of goes through with this? And if there is a regulatory body, let's say in New Zealand, some of these smaller countries that don't have, I think even to extent Australia, don't have the force behind it to kind of um, hold Microsoft to the fire here, and everyone else kind of is okay with it, does Microsoft still go through with this and then withhold certain services to those countries? That would get interesting as well, but that's something to think about, I would say, from some things I have just, listening to different people and heard about, is this could get even more interesting going forward. And I'm sure that I might have another comment or two on this. I like competition, but I really want some more games out. Granted, my game pile of games I need to play is backing up, but I'm being more selective, and I like good games, so we'll see. Maybe we can get some more out of that. So with that, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking and how you want this deal to go. Anyway, I want more competition, but it looks like the longer and longer this goes, unless we get an NVIDIA ARM type situation, it's not going to go the way of more competition, but more consolidation. So with that, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for taking the time to help support Grover Loan and help this channel grow. I really appreciate it. Until next time, God bless, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.